Long before the world knew the name Elon Musk, before rockets landed themselves and electric cars reshaped an industry, there was a woman quietly teaching her children how to stand upright in a world that often tries to bend you. May Musk's message is not loud, dramatic, or wrapped in clever slogans. It is calm, firm, and lived. And that is exactly why everyone needs to hear it. Her life did not unfold on an easy road. It unfolded on a road with cracks, detours, and long stretches where there was no applause at all. She learned early that waiting for perfect conditions is another way of postponing your life. You move forward with what you have, where you are, even when fear is sitting right beside you. Especially then. Her message begins there: do not pause your life because you feel unready. Readiness is not a feeling that arrives one day like a gift. It is something you build by taking the next step before you feel brave enough. She speaks often about independence, but not in the loud, rebellious way people imagine. Independence, in her world, is quiet competence. It is knowing you can survive, provide, and adapt even if everything familiar falls away. When she became a single mother with 3 children and very little money, she did not have the luxury of self-pity. She had mouths to feed, bills to pay, and a future to protect. She worked as a dietitian, took modeling jobs when she could, and studied further when others told her it was too late. The lesson hidden in that story is simple and uncomfortable. No one is coming to rescue you. And once you accept that, you stop waiting and start building. One of the most powerful things she teaches is that your worth does not decrease because life is difficult. Struggle is not proof of failure. Often, it is proof that you are attempting something meaningful. She did not see hardship as a verdict on her abilities. She saw it as a phase that required endurance and intelligence. That mindset changes everything. When you stop interpreting obstacles as personal insults, you gain the freedom to respond instead of react. You stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What do I do next?" Her message to young people is especially important in a time obsessed with early success. She reminds us that life is long, and growth does not follow a straight line. She became a successful fashion model in her 60s, an age when society quietly pushes women into invisibility. That alone challenges a deep, unspoken rule many people live by, that if it hasn't happened yet, it never will. She breaks that illusion without anger, simply by existing. The message is clear: there is no expiration date on reinvention. The only real deadline is the one you accept in your own mind. She warns against letting other people's expectations decide your path. Advice can be useful, but it can also be limiting. Many people will project their fears onto you and call it concern. They will tell you what is realistic, which often means what they themselves were too afraid to attempt. May Musk encourages listening carefully, but choosing deliberately. Respect opinions, but do not surrender your direction. You can be polite without being obedient. You can be grateful without being trapped. Another part of her message that quietly reshapes lives is her relationship with failure. She does not dramatize it. Failure is not an identity, just information. Something didn't work. Learn. Adjust. Continue. She raised her children with that same outlook. Try things. If you fail, you are not broken. You are learning. That single belief can change how a child, or an adult, approaches the entire world. Fear loses its grip when failure is no longer treated as a personal disaster. She also speaks honestly about self-respect. Not the kind that demands attention, but the kind that sets boundaries. After leaving an unhealthy marriage, she learned that endurance without dignity is not strength. Real strength is choosing yourself when staying costs you your sense of worth. That lesson extends beyond relationships. It applies to jobs that drain you, environments that belittle you, and habits that slowly erase your confidence. You are allowed to leave what harms you. You are allowed to choose peace over familiarity. Her message about money is practical and grounded. She does not romanticize struggle, nor does she shame ambition. She teaches that financial independence is not greed, it is security. It is choice. When you can support yourself, you can say no. You can walk away. You can take risks from a place of stability rather than desperation. She encourages learning useful skills, managing finances wisely, and never assuming someone else will always provide. It is not about wealth for status. It is about freedom. She also challenges the idea that confidence must come first. Confidence, in her experience, is the result of action, not the prerequisite. You do not wait to feel confident to apply for the job, start the business, or change your life. You do it scared, and confidence slowly follows. This is a crucial message in a world where people compare their inner doubts to everyone else's outer highlights. Most people you admire were unsure when they began. They just moved anyway. Her life quietly reminds us that dignity in small things matters. Show up on time. Do your work well. Be kind without being weak. Take responsibility when you make mistakes. These habits do not make headlines, but they build reputations, careers, and self-respect. She never chased attention. She chased competence. And attention eventually followed. There is also deep compassion in her message, especially toward women. She understands how often women are taught to shrink, to apologize for ambition, to carry everything silently. She encourages women to take space, to invest in themselves, and to stop believing that sacrifice must always be invisible. You can be caring and ambitious. You can be nurturing and strong. You do not need to choose one identity to deserve respect. Perhaps the most important thing she offers is hope without illusion. She does not promise ease. She promises possibility. Life may knock you down more than once. You may start over more than once. That does not mean you are behind. It means you are alive and still moving. There is dignity in persistence. Even when progress feels slow, her message also speaks to parents, whether they have children or are shaping others in quieter ways. She did not control her children's paths. She supported curiosity, encouraged learning, and modeled resilience. She trusted them to find their own way. That kind of faith plants confidence deeper than pressure ever could. It teaches that love is not about control, but about belief. In a world full of noise, her voice stands out because it is steady. She does not tell you to hustle endlessly or to manifest without effort. She tells you to work, to learn, to adapt, and to keep your self-respect intact while doing it. She reminds you that your story is not over because one chapter was painful. She reminds you that age is not an enemy, and neither is fear. They are simply parts of the human experience. At its core, her message is this: build a life you can stand behind. One where you are not waiting for permission, not defined by setbacks, and not limited by timelines that were never designed for you in the first place. Take responsibility for your future, even when it feels heavy. Especially when it feels heavy. Because on the other side of that responsibility is something rare and powerful, the quiet confidence that you can handle whatever comes next, and maybe that is why her words matter so much right now. In a time when many feel lost, overwhelmed, or late, she stands as living proof that you can begin again. Grow stronger, and rise in ways you never planned. Not by chasing perfection, but by choosing courage in ordinary moments. Not by waiting for life to be kind, but by meeting it with resilience, intelligence, and self-belief. She also reminds us of something many people quietly forget while chasing success: your health is not separate from your ambition. She spent decades working as a dietitian, not because it was fashionable, but because she understood that energy, clarity, and resilience are built from daily choices. You cannot think clearly in a body you neglect. You cannot sustain big dreams if your foundation is weak. Her message is not about perfection or obsession, but about respect. Respect your body enough to nourish it. Respect your mind enough to rest it. Success that costs you your health is not success, it is delayed loss. Another powerful layer of her message is patience with yourself. Growth often looks messy from the inside. There are seasons where you are learning, not earning. There are years where effort does not immediately translate into visible rewards. She lived through those years without bitterness. She did not assume that slow progress meant no progress. She understood that roots grow underground long before anything appears above the surface. This perspective saves people from quitting too early. When you stop demanding instant validation, You give yourself the time required to become truly capable. She also speaks, sometimes indirectly, about the danger of comparison. Watching others rise quickly can make your own journey feel small or delayed. But she lived her life knowing that comparison steals focus and joy. Everyone's starting point is different. Everyone's burdens are different. Measuring your worth against someone else's timeline will only distort your vision. The only comparison that matters is whether you are stronger, wiser, or more honest than you were before. Her relationship with fear is another quiet lesson. Fear did not disappear from her life as she grew older. It simply stopped being in charge. She felt fear when she moved countries, when she started over, when she entered industries that told her she didn't belong. But fear was never allowed to make decisions. She treated it like background noise, not a command. This is a critical message for anyone waiting to feel fearless. Fearlessness is rare. Courage is common, and it shows up when you act despite fear. She also teaches the importance of adaptability. The world changes. Industries change. Opportunities shift. People who survive and thrive are not always the most talented, but often the most flexible. She reinvented herself multiple times, not because she was chasing novelty, but because she was willing to learn. She stayed curious. She stayed useful. That mindset keeps you relevant at any age. The moment you believe learning is over, decline quietly begins. Her message to those who feel invisible is especially powerful. There were times when she was overlooked, underestimated, or dismissed. She did not waste energy demanding recognition. She focused on becoming undeniable through consistency and quality. Visibility often comes as a side effect of mastery, not as a reward for complaining. This is hard to hear, but deeply empowering. You regain control when you focus on what you can improve rather than how others perceive you. She also models grace under pressure. Life tested her repeatedly, yet she did not allow bitterness to define her personality. She chose optimism without denial. She acknowledged difficulty without surrendering to it. This balance is rare. Many people either pretend everything is fine or drown in negativity. She chose a third path, realism paired with hope. That combination builds emotional strength that no motivational quote can replace. Her story also quietly dismantles the myth that you must choose between survival and dreams. For a long time, survival was the priority. But she never buried her sense of possibility. Dreams may go quiet during hard seasons, but they do not die unless you abandon them. She carried hers patiently, allowing them to evolve. That patience paid off in ways she could not have predicted. There is also a subtle lesson about self-image. She refused to let age, criticism, or past hardship define how she saw herself. Identity, in her view, is not assigned by circumstances. It is chosen. When you choose to see yourself as capable, adaptable, and worthy, your behavior aligns with that belief. And over time, evidence accumulates. Perhaps what makes her message resonate most is that it does not demand admiration. It invites reflection. It asks you to look at your own life and ask honest questions. Where am I waiting instead of acting? Where am I blaming instead of learning? Where am I shrinking to stay comfortable? These questions are uncomfortable. But they are liberating. They shift power back into your hands. She reminds us that resilience is not loud. It is built in mornings when you get up tired and still show up. It is built in choices no one applauds. It is built when you take responsibility even when it would be easier to make excuses. Over time, these quiet decisions compound into a life that feels solid from the inside, and maybe that is the heart of her message. Not how to become famous, wealthy, or admired, but how to become unshakable. How to live in a way where external chaos does not completely derail your inner stability. How to trust yourself enough to keep going, even when the path is unclear. Her life is a reminder that you do not need permission to rebuild, to grow, or to start again. You only need the willingness to take the next honest step. Not the perfect step. Not the fearless step. Just the next one. She also leaves behind an unspoken but powerful lesson about humility. Despite being associated with one of the most influential figures of the modern age, she never allowed proximity to success to replace personal substance. She built her own identity patiently, refusing to live in anyone else's shadow or borrow significance from another person's achievements. That choice matters. It teaches that true confidence does not need borrowed light. It grows from self-respect and personal effort. Another dimension of her message is about consistency over intensity. She did not rely on bursts of motivation. She relied on habits. Showing up again and again, even when excitement faded, created momentum. Many people burn out because they chase extremes. Her life shows the quiet power of steady effort. Small, repeated actions shape character, skill, and opportunity far more reliably than dramatic starts followed by exhaustion. She also demonstrates emotional intelligence in how she handled criticism. Public opinion can be sharp and unfair, especially when you stand out or start late. She did not internalize every comment or attempt to please everyone. She learned to filter feedback wisely. Useful criticism became guidance. Noise was ignored. This ability to separate information from insult is a skill that protects mental health and preserves focus. Her message also reaches those who feel they missed their chance. Regret can be paralyzing. She does not deny regret exists, but she refuses to let it lead. The past is information, not a prison. You learn from it, then you redirect your energy forward. Living in constant rehearsal of what could have been drains the strength needed to build what still can be. Her life is evidence that redirection is always possible. She speaks, through her choices, about the importance of dignity in work. No job was beneath her when survival required effort. She modeled adaptability without resentment. Work was not just a means of income, but a means of agency. That mindset removes shame from honest labor and replaces it with pride. When you respect your work, regardless of status, you strengthen your sense of control over your life. Her experience also challenges the fear of being alone. Starting over often involves solitude. Friends may not understand. Support may thin out. She did not interpret solitude as rejection. She used it as a space to rebuild clarity and strength. Learning to stand alone, even temporarily, creates resilience that companionship later enhances rather than replaces. Another important element of her message is gratitude without complacency. She appreciated progress without settling for stagnation. Gratitude grounded her. Ambition moved her forward. These two forces are often falsely presented as opposites. In her life, they coexisted. You can be thankful for where you are while still working toward where you want to be. She also models how to age with confidence rather than apology. Instead of chasing youth, she focused on vitality. Instead of hiding lines, she carried them with pride. This sends a quiet but radical message in a world obsessed with erasing time. Aging is not a loss of value, it is an accumulation of perspective. When you embrace that, you stop negotiating your worth. Her message also extends to how we treat others. Success did not make her dismissive. Struggle did not make her cruel. She maintained courtesy, empathy, and respect regardless of status. These qualities do not slow success. They sustain it. Relationships built on respect last longer than those built on convenience. She shows that strength and softness are not enemies. You can be firm in your values and gentle in your approach. You can set boundaries without hostility. You can be ambitious without arrogance. This balance is rare and deeply influential. People listen more closely to those who do not need to dominate to be heard. Perhaps one of the most overlooked lessons in her story is self-trust. After navigating uncertainty, disappointment, and reinvention, she learned to rely on her own judgment. Advice became optional, not compulsory. Fear became familiar, not frightening. When you trust yourself, decisions become clearer, even when outcomes are uncertain. Her life quietly argues that meaning is built, not found. You create it through responsibility, contribution, and courage. Waiting for purpose to appear often leads to restlessness. Acting in alignment with your values gradually reveals it, and as the years passed, her message did not soften into nostalgia. It sharpened into wisdom. She did not speak from theory, but from experience. She did not offer shortcuts, only principles. And principles, once lived, outlast circumstances. In the end, her message is not about being extraordinary. It is about being intentional. About choosing growth over comfort, courage over convenience, and self-respect over approval. When you live that way, success becomes less about recognition and more about peace. As her story settles into its final lessons, what remains most striking is her understanding of peace. Not the kind that comes from having everything, but the kind that comes from knowing you did your best with what you were given. She did not chase a flawless life. She chased an honest one. And that honesty created a calm confidence that no external success could replace. She understood that life does not reward perfection, it responds to persistence. There were moments when exhaustion could have justified giving up, when discouragement could have become an excuse. Yet she chose endurance without drama. This teaches something rare: resilience does not need to announce itself. It simply continues. She also teaches acceptance without resignation. Acceptance of reality does not mean liking it. It means seeing clearly enough to act wisely. When circumstances were harsh, she did not deny them. She adjusted. When opportunities appeared, she did not doubt whether she deserved them. She stepped forward. That balance between realism and belief is the foundation of mature strength. Her message gently warns against living for applause. Applause is unpredictable and often delayed. If validation is your fuel, disappointment will be your constant companion. She built her life on internal standards. Did I act with integrity? Did I do the work properly? Did I treat people well? Those questions gave her stability even when recognition was absent. She also shows that courage evolves. In youth, courage may look like rebellion or bold leaps. With time, it becomes quieter but deeper. It looks like patience, like consistency, like choosing long-term dignity over short-term comfort. That kind of courage shapes a life that ages well. Another quiet truth in her message is forgiveness. Not as weakness, but as release. Holding on to bitterness only prolongs the influence of past pain. She did not allow old wounds to dictate new decisions. She learned, she moved on, and she protected her future by not carrying unnecessary weight from the past. She also demonstrates that success is not a destination you arrive at once. It is something you negotiate repeatedly. Each stage of life demands different strengths. She adapted without clinging to old identities. This flexibility kept her alive to possibility. When one chapter ended, she did not mourn it endlessly. She turned the page. Her life reminds us that discipline is a form of self-care. Structure creates freedom. Routine creates reliability. When emotions fluctuate, habits carry you forward. She did not depend on feeling inspired every day. She depended on systems that supported her even on difficult days. She also teaches presence. Despite achievements and recognition, she did not live mentally in the future or the past. She valued the moment she was in. This groundedness kept her from being consumed by anxiety or nostalgia. It allowed her to appreciate progress without fear of losing it. Perhaps the deepest part of her message is responsibility without blame. She took ownership of her life without turning that responsibility into self-criticism. Mistakes were acknowledged, not weaponized against herself. This compassionate accountability is what allows growth without self-destruction. She shows us that influence does not require dominance. Her strength came from example, not force. People listened because her life was consistent with her words. Integrity created authority. Quiet alignment spoke louder than loud declarations ever could. As her journey unfolds fully, the message becomes clear without needing to be stated. You do not need a perfect past to create a strong future. You do not need approval to take your next step. You do not need certainty to move forward. You only need courage that renews itself daily. In a world obsessed with speed, she chose endurance. In a culture addicted to youth, she chose growth. In a time of constant comparison, she chose self-definition. These choices did not make her immune to pain, but they made her resilient to despair, and that is why her message stays with you. It does not promise ease. It promises strength. It does not offer escape. It offers responsibility paired with hope. It reminds you that no matter where you begin, you are allowed to become more. The final truth she leaves us with is simple and demanding. Take your life seriously, but not bitterly. Work hard, but do not lose your humanity. Dream boldly, but stay grounded. When you live this way, success becomes something deeper than achievement. It becomes self-respect.